welcome everyone. My name is Janet. I'm working through the King James's Bible. I'm in the book of Deuteronomy right now, working through quite a number of chapters today. So I'm starting off with chapter 14 and working right the way through to chapter 20. So just to give you a brief overview of what the book of Deuteronomy is all about, it's about Moses giving a sermon to the younger generation of the Israelites. They are on the opposite side of the promised land, looking towards it, and as they enter into that land they have to follow God's laws, statutes and commandments that he's given to the Israelites. Now the older generation failed to adhere to them. That's why they were trapped in the wilderness for 40 years and Moses was there with them. He also sinned, so he won't be able to go over to the promised land with them, but his job right now is to make sure all of these rules, commandments are relayed to this younger generation. They've got it in their hearts. They know exactly what they have to do before they go into battle with the nations across there and then carry out these laws, these rules, these commandments the Lord has put down so that they will prosper in this land and it will be blessed for them. So without further ado, let's get into chapter 14. So we begin with Moses saying that the people are to be a particular kind of people unto the Lord. He has blessed them. And so he wants them to eat a certain type of food, which the Lord classes as clean, and not to eat anything that is classed as unclean. So we start off with the animals. The animals that are to be clean are the ones with divided hooves and the ones that chew the cud, which means that they chew, swallow it and bring it back up and chew it a second time. Anything in the water with fins and scales is seen as clean. Anything without fins and scales is seen as unclean, so you can't eat those. Birds, there is a whole list of birds that are unclean in this chapter. The birds that are clean he doesn't refer to in this chapter. He just says, you can eat any clean birds, which is a turtle, dove, say they are a clean bird. So what I thought I would do is just give you a picture because I find it easier to remember these types of things. So just to give you a quick overview, that is exactly what the Lord has kind of laid down, so you can give an idea what's clean. A cow, fish, a deer, fine to eat. Anything unclean, so a pig, any scavengers you're not to be eaten. They are an abomination, as it says on there. So horses, dogs and cats, crabs, things like that are not to be eaten. So next we move on to Moses saying that they are not to boil a kid goat in its mother's milk. That is forbidden. The next thing to be covered is 1/10 of the seed from their field they are to bring forth year after year, and then this is to be eaten before the Lord. So this includes 1/10 of the corn, the wine, the oil, and the firstborn from the flocks and herds. Now there is going to be a chosen place, obviously, in the land, the promised land, like the tabernacle when they've been travelling has been that place where the Lord has resided. So the Lord will reside in a place in the promised land, and the people are to bring all of this 1/10 of their crops to this place and then eat it and celebrate. However, those of the people who live way out, because it's a large area of land that they're going to be taking over, he doesn't expect them to bring all of that from that area. What they have to do is then turn that into silver and then bring that to this area and buy in that land whatever they want, that they want to celebrate then with the Lord by eating it. So again, sort of more food, wine and oil in different whatever they want. Next, they are not to forsake the Levites who have no inheritance. They won't get anything because they have the Lord as their inheritance. So at the end of 3 years, they are to bring forth 1/10 and store it in their towns, so then it can be given to the Levites. It can be given to the strangers, to the fatherless, and the widows who are within the promised land. So this is to make sure that everybody is taken care of and satisfied. And the Lord will bless everybody for doing this. So that closes our chapter 14. In chapter 15, we cover the rules during the Jubilee. So this happens at the end of 7 years. It's called the release, to make a release. So anybody who has a debt Anybody who is a creditor and they've loaned money, it's to be cleared on the 7th year. It's just cleared from anybody who is an Israelite. They can actually still get debt from foreigners, but any Israelites within that land, then the debt's to be cleared. And it says not to have any poor among you, so to make sure that you give to the poor, and that everyone has to keep the Lord's commandments. Now Moses is telling them that they can lend to any nations, but they are not allowed to borrow from any or have any nation reign over them. However, they can reign over other nations. So that's brought in here. And we go back to the poor, where it says you must give to the poor and not use the Jubilee as a way of withholding from the poor. So sort of saying, yeah, you might be poor now, wait till the Jubilee and then we'll give you some. That is classed as a sin and not allowed. And by giving to the poor and needy with as much as you can, you will be blessed by the Lord for doing that. It's such a good thing seen in the Lord's eyes, by taking care of your poor and your needy. Now, any Hebrew woman or man that has been bought and is a slave, they work for 6 years, but on the 7th year they are to be released. And they are to be sent away with plenty, not send them away empty-handed like you're saying about the poor. Make sure that they are well taken care of as they leave. So give them food, give them crop, give them animals, make sure they're taken care of, the Lord is saying. However, if a slave does not want to leave because they're so happy where they are and they want to stay with you forever, then to make this official, what they have to do is they have to get a sharp hand tool and they have to pierce through the ear of that person at the door of the master's house, and then they will be classed as their slave forever. So that's how that takes place. And as always, during sort of any celebratory time, they are to bring offerings. So they have to bring the firstborn males from the flocks and herds to be given to the Lord to sanctify, and then eat before the Lord year after year. And these animals have not to be blemished, they must have no defects. And everybody, whether classed as clean or unclean, are to eat at the gates of the Lord, but not to eat any of the blood. The blood is forbidden because that is the life of the animal, so that's forbidden. And that closes chapter 15. Now in chapter 16, we're covering the 3 festivals that are to take place every year. So the first one is the Passover, and they must keep the Passover and give sacrifices from their herds and flocks. And during the Passover, they're not to eat any leavened bread. And this specific festival is to remind them of the time when they left Egypt. They had to eat unleavened bread because they were so in a rush to get out of there. That's all they could take with them. So eating this for 7 days is to remind them of that time. And this festival lasts for 7 days, and on the 7th day they are to assemble before the Lord and not work. This is the Sabbath, so it's got to be observed. No work to take place on the 7th day. Now once this festival is over, they have to count 7 weeks on, and this will be when they first get their first crops from the land. So this festival is called the Feast of Weeks. And this is when they bring their free will offerings to the Lord, and everyone in the land is to rejoice. Then 7 days after this festival is the festival of the tabernacle, and again 7 days to keep this festival to the Lord, and the Lord will bless and increase your wealth. And for each of these festivals, for 3 times in the year, all males are to appear before the Lord in all these festivals, and not empty-handed. So bring forth everything that is to be given to the Lord as he's laid down clearly. And the last part, just to move on from the festivals, to finish this chapter, we go into the Israelites, that they are to appoint judges and officers from every tribe, and the judges are not to take bribes or gifts in order to prevent true justice. So that is not allowed. That is what closes this chapter, that final part of having judges appointed and officers to carry out true justice. We now move into chapter 17, which is listing now what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So they are not to sacrifice any animals with a blemish or any defect. That is an abomination to the Lord. It's a no-no. Next, A man or woman who has committed wickedness or worshipped any other god, including like the sun or moon or any other host of heavenly or whatever they want to make up, is against God's commandments. Now, if anyone is found out and they hear about it and have diligently inquired and it's found to be true, then the judgment is death by stoning, public stoning. Now, there has to be 2 witnesses to this. There cannot be one, it has to be 2 for it to be a true case. And the first witness is the one to cast the first stone. Now, if a matter arises between 2 people and they can't decide what to do, then it's to be brought forth to the Lord, to bring forth to the Levites and the judges to decide on the judgment. And they must obey what they decide. If anyone is found to go against the priests and the judges, then they are to be executed. And it says, all evil must be flushed out of Israel. We next then go into appointing a king. So Moses says that they are to appoint a king that God selects, and he must be an Israelite. It's not allowed to be a stranger of the land that can be king. The king should not have many horses or send the Israelites back to Egypt. That's not allowed. And the king cannot have lots of wives because his heart will then stray from the Lord. He has to be loyal to the Lord. He's also not allowed to acquire lots of gold or silver. And the king is required to keep a written copy of the law and read it every day so that he keeps and follows the laws of God. The king is also not to see himself as superior to anyone else. Okay, that closes our chapter 17. We now move into chapter 18. So this goes over again the rules for the Levites. So because they have no inheritance, what happens is they are given offerings by the Lord. So whatever the people bring as an offering, they are to take a percentage of that for their food. It's like their reward for following out God's rules and carrying out his practices on a daily basis. We now move on to the Israelites. They are warned not to get involved in any occult practices, never to sacrifice their sons or daughters in fire, which is a lot of these other nations do when they are worshipping these other gods. And they're not to take any part in any sorcery or witchcraft or speak to any spirits or the deceased. Because the current nations that are in that promised land right now, they are carrying out these practices and the Lord absolutely detests this. Now Moses tells the Israelites that the Lord has also promised to appoint a prophet amongst them. And this prophet will be like Moses. And that they are not to give any attention to false prophets. They'll know a true prophet because his words will come true. And the prophet to come, just to give you a heads up, will be Jesus. This is really who he's talking about in this chapter. So there you go. And that closes our chapter 18. Next, chapter 19. Once the Israelites possess the promised land, they are to divide it up into 3 cities and the coasts into 3 parts for the slayer. Now the slayer is the person who has accidentally or ignorantly killed somebody. It's somewhere safe for them to reside, and they will reside there until the priest dies. Now this place of safety is in case an avenger wants to see them dead. So if they see them, they're going to want to kill them for what they have done. It also says that if anyone hates a neighbour and has killed them, they cannot go and flee to these cities. If they're found to be going there, the priests and the judges have to get them out of there, and then they are to be killed. Because death, really, if you've done it out of deliberate hate, is the death sentence. Again, these people who have killed somebody accidentally or ignorantly will be under trial, and they have to have 2 witnesses or more. It can't be 1 witness, they need 2. And these witnesses are to present their case before the priests and the judges. Now, if a witness is found to be false in his judgment, and he's falsely accused someone, then whatever the claim shall be put upon him or her. So they'll get whatever they were putting on somebody else falsely. And that closes chapter 19. Our final chapter as we move into it now is all about going to war. Now Moses tells the Israelites here during war not to fear anything because they're going to have God on their side. If they see chariots, if they see armies, if all of this, don't fear it. Know in your heart that God is by your side and he is going to ensure that you are going to be victorious. And he's going to remain with you throughout every battle. Now the priests, before every battle, they are to speak to their army of Israelites and say to them, the Lord is here with us, don't forget. Not to be scared, don't be afraid of anything, that the Lord is going to see that we have victory. Now anyone who is found to be too afraid and too scared, they're to go back home, because basically they are going to cause disruption in the camp. Somebody's really, it could end up, spreading. So they don't want that there. So they are to go back home. It also says if anyone has a house and they've not lived in it, is to return home so that nobody else will live in it if he dies. Also in this chapter it says if a woman is pledged to a man and he has not wed that woman, then he must return and marry her before another man takes his place. Also during a war, a peace offering is to be given to each city that they enter. And if the people accept the offering, then those people will become slaves to the Israelites and will work for them. Now, if the people refuse to take this offering, a siege would take place on that city. And then once the city was sieged, all men would die by the sword, and the rest would become plunder. And we end this chapter by Moses saying they are to take the city and destroy the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivitites, and the Jebusites, as God commanded. So there we have it, 7 chapters which are quite detailed again in what they can and cannot do, what is expected of them by the Lord. So this is what is required if they are to prosper and to have success in that promised land. So that's it for today, and we'll be back again with more chapters within Deuteronomy soon. Thanks for being here. Take care now. Bye.